when crisis happens. When you go through a crisis, hello you all, I'm Diana Brienne. Well, we are having a bit of a gloomy day today, but I think even gloomy days are beautiful. And I am going out for my 5-mile run this morning, and it's chilly and cold and wet, but that doesn't matter to me. As long as it's not raining, wet, cold, I'm good. So I wanted to talk about when you go through a crisis. You know, I think if you live long enough, you're probably going to go through a crisis or two or three or maybe even more. I mean, it's just life. If you don't, you're very, very fortunate, but I don't know anyone that has not gone through some kind of crisis. Crises come in all shapes and sizes, and they come to pretty much everybody at some point. Some crises are self-generated. That means people made choices that led up to that crisis, whereas other crises, that person had nothing to do to create. It was just came to them in some way. And either way, when you go through a crisis, often it's a shock. Sometimes it's not. If you see that crisis coming, some crises come over time and you see it coming. Other crises are more shocking. You just didn't see it coming. It was something that you didn't see coming. Or some crises are you see it coming, but you don't know what it's going to be. And but any which way, even if you knew it was coming, it still can come as a shock when it actually happens, whether it's a small crisis or a big crisis. You know, I think people go through those. When my daughter took sick 2 years ago, and it was a suddenly sick, it went out of the blue. We had no idea. And I did a whole nother video called portal vein syndrome, I think it was, portal vein occlusion, and whereas she had a blockage in her portal vein, which we never had any idea. No doctor had ever detected it, nobody. And it was a birth defect. And fortunately, you know, I got her to the emergency room. I, you know, kept on it. I didn't let the doctors, you know, keep telling me it was the flu when it wasn't. And I said, it's not the flu. But that's a whole nother video. But what I'm saying is that was a crisis. It was one I didn't see coming. No one saw coming. And it came out of the blue. It was very, very traumatic. And yet I remembered, number one, you want to make yourself crisis proof. And by crisis proof doesn't mean that you're not going to have a crisis. It means that you are able to handle that crisis because you have a basic system in place. Because I take care of my body, and at 62 years old, and I run and I juice and I do all the right things, I was in good standing physically, so that when she took sick, I was able to carry big suitcases through long tunnels 2 hours away at a university hospital and deal with all the stress and sleep in a big hard blue chair for weeks at a time, you know, several weeks. And it was just really, really emotionally and physically exhausting. But I was able to handle it because I was crisis proof in the sense that I had made myself strong so that if I had to deal with a crisis, I could. And had I been a broke down 62-year-old, I may have not been able to support her the way I did. And so you want to make yourself crisis proof, health-wise, financially, emotionally, you know, a great support system of people if you can, all the kind of things that go into making your life solid so that if, like the 3 little pigs, you know, the wolf comes, blows the first little pig's house down because it was straw, the second little pig was wood, the third little pig was brick. And so you want to be like the little pig that had the brick house so that if the wolf comes, and he inevitably might, you want to be able to withstand that. And the second thing is just understand it's very confusing when a crisis hits you suddenly and unexpectedly, and you have to gather information. You're shocked. You don't know what to do. So you gather information, as much accurate information as you can. Remember, not all information is accurate. And then you begin to get right input, right decision making. And remember, not all input is right input and not all decisions are right. So you want to make right decisions during this confusing period of time. And then you have to stay strong. You have to stay rested. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind. You have to take care of your solid relationships that you already have. And you have to take care of you in order to get through a crisis. And a lot of people just let themselves fall apart, and you can't do that. You have to be strong. You have to take care of you. You have to withstand this, and you have to keep your faith that you're going to make it through this, that this is time limited, because crises are time limited. There's an entrance and an exit. How you exit is often tied to the decisions that you make, and often we don't always know how it's going to turn out. But when we exit, often we have become a different person, in the sense of we see life a lot differently. After my daughter was so sick like that, I really saw, even though I always knew it, how precious life is, and how instantly anything can be taken from you, and how to cherish what you have. And I always did. I always did that, but more so. So it changes you. A crisis will change you. It will also teach you. It will also make you more resilient for your future. And no one wants to go through a crisis. Crises are difficult and challenging, and no one wants to go through it. But when you have to go through it, when you can't navigate around it, some crises we can get around, but some we just have to go right through. And when I was going through that, I said, I'm going through the storm. I'm going through the eye of the storm. The day that she had surgery, I felt like I was in the eye of the storm, the eye of the hurricane. And because it was a major surgery and it was scary. And I remember my knees wobbling as the doctor called us down after the surgery to speak with him, and I almost passed out. And my husband had to hold me up by my arm. I mean, I was really weak. I was so scared. And she made it through. She's doing great now. And yet we made it through that crisis. And because I made great decisions all along the way, when she started taking sick and some of the doctors told us that it was the flu, I said, no, it's not the flu. This is not the flu. I was determined to find answers. So I took her back to the emergency room. And by then they had discovered something significantly was wrong, but they didn't know what. But it was because of my persistence in making right decisions. And so we want to make right decisions in our lives. Make right decisions. Try to slow your pace down. Try to slow your life down a little bit if you can. Not always can you when you're going through a crisis, so that you can be rested, so that you can make correct decisions, and so that you can get through it and get to the other side of it, okay? And get to the other side of it successfully, if at all possible. Well, from my house to yours, may God bless you. I hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope to talk to you soon.